Hello, everyone. Um, this is basically it's a slideshow of our vacation, which I have hundreds of photos that we're going to go through. Hopefully, you don't mind. This is so. Barbara, myself, and our daughter decided to get something off of our bucket list, and that was to go visit Hawaii. And so this is a picture of their Black Sands beach that we had to go see. They have a Green Sands beach, but it was like a 3-mile hike one way to get to, and we're like, okay, never mind, we'll skip the green one. I have this picture 3 miles away that I can tell you, you know what, that was Green Sand Beach way over there, but we didn't see it. But we went there again as a check mark off of our bucket list, and we wanted to do something that was just different. And one thing that we decided to do that, you know, we're playing the role of tourists, and one of the things that they highly recommend was we learned how to scuba dive, but some of us are not willing to scuba dive because we haven't scuba dived in a long time, so we decided, you know what, let's just set up for snorkeling. So we're gonna go snorkel, and what was really unique was a trip that you can get on to watch the sunset and then snorkel at night. And that's what we said. Like, wow, that sounds something different, it's very special. Hey, we're in Hawaii, let's do this. And as soon as you get onto the catamaran, you instantly turn into somebody that looks like this. Don't look too closely, but that's me, and that's Barbie in the back. Just trust me, that's us. So we went out with this outfit, and it's a catamaran, beautiful time of night. And basically, we're sitting in the back. And the whole idea before you get into the water is you're going to come through that hallway and down those stairs and you're in the water. And we fell for this picture. We thought this was going to be great. I never think that if you're in Hawaii, the waters are going to be freezing, cold. I'm like, how could that, you know, I want my money back. How, you don't pay for that cold water. So it's like, okay, I mean, we watch the sunset, beautiful sunset, can't complain. They motor for about half an hour to where we're going to drop into where there's a reef, there's fish life, there's things going on. And so you're given at least a top half wetsuit. Your bottom half is on your own. And so when it's getting time to get into the water, you're coming down the little hallway kind of thing there, and then you start getting close to here, and that's when the wind picks up, and that's when you really realize it's cold. And you're given the snorkel, the mask, and a pool noodle. Now the pool noodle is to put on your feet so that when you're hanging on the water, your feet are not doing this thing. And that makes sense. Now by the time I hit that first step, I realized how cold this thing is, and how bulky this mask and snorkel and this noodle. Take that next step, the water's up to my shins and my knees, then it's like, yeah, this is cold. And one of the things you normally do is you dunk your mask to get it wet so that it doesn't fog up on you. My teeth are chattering already. And I'm like, okay, so dip it, put it over your head, and then the water rushes down your whole body, and you're like, okay, this is cold. And there's people waiting behind you. Half the group has already gone out, the other half is like, hurry up. Take the next step, it's up to your waist now. Gentlemen, you know what that means. It is cold. It is cold. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. I put the snorkel in my mouth, my teeth are chattering, and I swear I felt like I was going to bite right through it. So at the end, it's like, okay, just throw yourself in. This whole idea about yanking that Band-Aid off so it hurts less, nah, it's still darn cold. Now, when you get into the water, there's a sled that they set up with lights shining down. And this whole idea is that you're going to hang on to the sled, your feet up on the noodle, and you just nice and calm and enjoy it. No. It's a lie. It's cold. And you know the warmest part of your body? That's how, yes you did. So this is nice and warm. When you stretch out and that cold water hits your armpit, I'm yelling in my snorkel how much fun I'm having. It is something else. And so this is the sled. This is how you're hanging on. Our daughter's somewhere in here, me and Barbara's there, and she has to think somebody else. I was at the end.
I have some,
And you got that snorkel that's supposed to stay by your feet.
the pool noodle.
The pool noodle, I'm sorry. I don't know how many pool noodles they lose, because all of a sudden you see somebody's feet dangling down, and so this is the setup. It's at night. It's cold. You're freezing. And then what you came for. It is. You forget about the cold. You don't care how cold it is. This was just a microphone. And we learned that it does this little, whatever you call it. because
Ballet.
Yeah, it's like a dance, but it's collecting the plankton that has collected because of the lights. That's what I said underwater.
No,
I
it's
get
just
it.
showing off.
This is a manta ray, and this was just so cool. Like I said,
Look right inside.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're basically looking straight through its mouth into its gills. And it,
They get really close to you.
yes, I mean,
You're not supposed to touch them.
but if they brush up
They
against
brush
you,
by you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we finished, I mean, you were there for about 15, 20 minutes, because you can't rush them. You can't rush the plankton, and they come when they're hungry. And by the time we had to leave, of course, you don't want to leave. And I think one came up and brushed Barbara's leg at that point.
So
And
there was many?
so what you saw was our boat, but then there's many boats around. And you have the choice of either, if you want to snorkel, you're up on top. Scuba divers, you go to the bottom, shine your lights up, and you wait down there. And so there's a lot of outfits, and that's a good and a bad, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So my presentation is actually about rays. So you got stingrays, you have eagle rays, and you have manta rays. And I'm gonna focus a little bit more on the manta rays because they were so unique, we got to see them. And after that experience, I started Googling and searching to figure out what were these things. And it's really cool. It's not until you see that, and they come up so close to you, that you begin to care. I think somebody, I can't remember, somebody had, Jake with the alligators is like, you want folks to touch something, because if you can touch it, they care about it now. That's a great reason why to give these shells, because when kids see them and look at them, they care about them now. And so, now, the other part of my struggle with this was, well, that was Hawaii. To bring it back here, bring it back to Texas, I'd hate to cheat and say, yeah, these are all in Hawaii, and if you want to go see them, go there. But they do happen here. And so last October, they're participating in the Sharkathon, and he reels in a 200-pound manta ray off Padre Island. And they fought for it for 2 hours before they landed it. It wasn't until they got really close that they figured out what it was. And they actually, the judge for the fishing tournament happened to come by at the time, and they actually told him not to let him go, because he knew enough to get the hook out and let him be. But they wanted the Texas Parks and Wildlife to come in to verify the species, to verify what it was, and take measurements and so forth. So they do happen here. Now, when we're out on the Laguna Madre, I think I see stuff jump, but I'm never gonna take a picture. I don't have that camera ready when it does. And I thought they were there. But they do occur up and down Padre Island. There's no reason why they wouldn't come up the shipping channel and then go away. So it is quite possible.
Jim Seymour international.
Yeah, there you go. So either we're crazy or they do show up. And so this got me to thinking about, yeah, it could be both.
Yeah.
This got me to thinking about what are these things? What are these creatures? And they're cousins to the sharks. They're often called a compressed shark or a flattened shark. No bones, all cartilage. And you can find them worldwide. They occur all over the place. And so the first class of rays are stingrays, which we're familiar with. We see them up here. We're worried about them when we're out in the Laguna. They'll have a wingspan of about 3 feet, so not really, really big. And as we know, they'll bury themselves in the sand. That's why we always talk about the shuffle, stingray shuffle when we're out there, rather to spook them and have them go away rather than step on them. Masters of camouflage, it's often rare that you're over the water and you can spot them unless the wave action has moved the sand away from them. Otherwise, it's really hard to tell that they're there. Mouth is located on the underside of their body. Feeds on invertebrates, bony fish, and as we know, it has a stinging spine. And that's the thing that we worry about. Then we have the eagle rays. And if you look at that picture, that's where it gets its name, these spots that it has. It can grow up to 6 to 8 feet, so much bigger than the stingray. Shallow waters, warm, ocean found worldwide, small crustaceans. And what it'll do is actually dig into the sand trying to find what it feeds on. Now, both of these, they don't have teeth. They actually have plates that have been molded almost flat, and they basically crush their prey. So unlike a shark that's going to tear it apart with its teeth and so on, this is actually going to catch it, crush it, and then swallow it. It does have a poisonous barb as well. But they're not dangerous. They'll mind their business as long as you stay away from them. They're more willing to just swim away than confront anything. So they're very shy and they spook easily. So they're really not a problem if you see one. But then we get to the manta rays, which is what we saw in Hawaii. They're the largest of the 3 rays. No stinger, which is a good thing for us. They will not sting you. And again, no teeth, no barb, nothing for us to worry about. They would prefer to swim away than have any kind of confrontation. Now their cruising speed is about 9 miles an hour. When they meet something that they don't want to interact with, could be a human, it could be a shark, they can swim away at a peak of about 39 miles an hour. So their strategy is get away fast, and hope you don't get chased down, because they don't have any other real defense. As you saw in that video, they're plankton feeders, so they basically are counting on swimming through, just like what we've seen some sharks will do, some whales. They're looking for that plankton to flow through their filters, and that's how they get their food, basically. And there's 2 kinds of manta rays. You got the reef mantas, and we have the giant manta rays, the pelagic ones, and we'll talk about either one in a second. The eagle rays and the manta rays are always swimming. They have to in order to get that flow of water and get the oxygen that they need. They cannot sit still at the bottom like the stingray can. So these guys need to always be moving. And when I saw that picture of that manta ray that they landed, that's the first thing I thought of is, well, hopefully the waves are going to continue to flow to keep it alive. And according to the story, they did let it go and it did swim away. So hopefully it did survive and could deal with that. So the manta rays have been found to have the largest brain to body ratio of all fish. And they think that it has at least some sort of intelligence, whatever it might be, we're not sure. They do show signs of advanced problem-solving capability. They are playful and curious. They want to see who these people are that are swimming in there, freezing their butts off, trying to look at them. And so they actually don't mind the humans and will come up to you. They have found in studies that the manta rays will also recognize themselves in the mirror. So there is that kind of awareness of who they are. Now, this is all known only since roughly about 1989 or so. Prior to that, we really didn't know anything about them. They were basically classified as a fish. Let's not care. And there's a few people that have started to go out there and explore and try to figure out what really are they and how many are they. Right now, I mentioned we're talking about 2 manta rays. They think there's a 3rd one. They're waiting for verification that it is its own unique species. but a lot of the things that we know about the manta rays is really recent. And again, this idea that they have some sort of awareness of who they are is really interesting. Females are larger than the males. You'll see some images of the manta rays and the coloring that they have on their backs. That is the manta rays in Hawaii versus our coast versus Australia. They all have something unique about that coloring, that the people that study this can tell exactly where that manta ray came from. And so there's some uniqueness, but they're still the same species. Now, there's so many of them and we don't know enough about them. Our best estimate is that they weigh 50 to 100 pounds per foot of wingspan. So that one that they caught was roughly about 600 pounds, and you can do the math to figure out the wingspan from there. But they, again, we haven't studied them enough to know, can we fine tune this number any more than that? And they're threatened worldwide. Unfortunately, in the Chinese medical market, they sell this gill rakers as a way to remove toxins from your body. There's no scientific fact for that. Claims that it's an ancient way of doing this is not founded because none of their ancient articles talk about this. So we don't know where this came from, but there's images that I won't show you of these manta rays lining up a beach and they're basically being cut apart. Simply to get the gills out. And there's videos out there in the street markets where you have these baskets full of gill rakers.
Jeez.
And the people there know not to admit that that's what they are. So when people are in their video asking them what are these, they won't tell you. And that's one of the big things that threatens the manta rays. Now we'll talk a little bit about the reef manta. That is the image that you saw in that video. They're the ones that like to stay near the shore. They're given the reef in their name because they like the reefs. It's a source of food for them. Found along coral reefs. They're called homebodies. They'll actually, we've seen images of the sharks that go to cleaning stations and the little fish and crustaceans come and clean the sharks. Manta rays have learned to do that too. So you find a cleaning station, every so often a manta ray will go in there. And again, he can't really move. He needs to swim, but they'll stop for a while these little cleaning fish help them out. 9 to 23 foot wingspan.
Wow.
The manta ray that was in our video was about 5 to 6 feet. So they can get much, much bigger than that. Around the mouth, right in here, usually it's white. And that's one way to try to distinguish between one or the other. And I say usually because you will have an albino manta ray, and there's a black morph that is jet black, no coloring at all. There's a discrete border along the ventral side, and this, forgive me if I say this wrong, caudal thorn that they talk about is sort of a blister that they have found at the tail of the manta rays of where they believe at some point in time in its past it did have a stinger. And so the reef mantas don't have that outer blister, but the giant mantas do, the ocean mantas. And so this is the pelagic, or the larger ones of these two. They travel all over the world. And what they're doing is basically they're migrating to follow the plumes of the zooplankton around the world. And so they've tagged some of these, and they can see where they're traveling north and south around the world following the plankton. They have found them in packs of up to 1,500 as they migrate to where their feeding grounds are. 22 to 30 foot wingspans. These are huge, huge, huge animals. And in many cases, this is also, there's several species that people will call them gentle giants. This is one of them. They're huge, but they have no defense. The only way they can possibly hurt you, you get too close and they take off and hit you on your way out. But they're harmless. They have no defense other than to swim away. And like I said, they have a blister along the base of their tail where the stingers used to be in their species a long time ago. They usually have a black mouth, unlike the white mouth of the reef ray. Again, usually, it's just like everything else, butterflies have slightly different things. Birds have morphs and all this kind of stuff. Same thing with these species as well. And then they have a clear border underneath. They have found one of these guys at 4,500 feet. They don't know why, but they have had video evidence of that's how far they will dive. I don't know, for the fun of it, trying to hold its breath or something. We don't know, scientists don't know why they would have gone that far down. There are cameras, by the way, that are posted in different places. And this was just one of the cameras that happened to spot this. And there's often citizen scientists that are reviewing these hours and hours of videos when they spot these things and report it back to the scientists. Otherwise, we would not know these things. On the underside of the mantis are some unique spots. It's almost like a thumbprint that they can identify the individual manta ray based on the spots where they're located, how many they're located. And so I decided to do a little test to see if this was true. So I took a snapshot of the manta ray that was swimming with us in Hawaii, and I looked at their database, and I found the match.
All right.
Wow.
So the manta ray that we saw is called Elvika ray, first identified in 2017. And it's a female, and she's still there.
Wow.
She's still coming back. And that was something I thought was really unique. And you hear about this, but then you go out there and test yourself and look at all 40, 50 pictures of the underside of a manta ray. It's a great afternoon, but to finally find it and say, I found it.
Yeah.
This was really cool. At the very end, I'll show you this website. They're actually asking you, if you love to scuba dive, or if you happen to snorkel and can take a picture of the underside, there's a database that you can upload, it kind of a iNaturalist for manta rays, to help them. Either you're going to find a brand new manta ray that we haven't seen before, or they'll add it to their database that they saw that manta ray here versus everywhere else it's been traveled, which is really cool. So we got to know exactly which of the manta rays we saw that night. This is an example of the database. This is for the flower gardens right off of our coast. And so we do have scientists out there that have been documenting as many manta rays as they've seen on our flower gardens, which is, what, 100 miles off the coast somewhere? And so this is one of the cool things too, that if you do scuba dive or want to scuba dive and you have a chance to take a photo, you can go back and say, I saw that guy. Now these are not really cute. They gave them a letter and a number. They should have given them names. That was So if we look at a manta ray, there's some very specific characteristics. They got the eye on either side of their face. They call these a cephalic horn when they're rolled up. But if you saw on the one that was feeding, he had them unrolled. And that helps funnel that water into their mouths when they feed. Otherwise, they roll them up to improve their aerodynamics when they're swimming in the water. They have a small pair of fins in the back, and then you have the big pectoral fins on the sides as well. We're not sure about their lifespan, but we think that it's between 50 to 100 years that they can live. And again, we don't know enough to know for sure, but that's the best guess. Eyes inside of the head. And again, these fins at the very front, they'll unfurl and then flare out, like what you saw in that video, to help channel that water into their mouths. So they roll up like newspapers. It takes them to get to the age of about 10 years old before they can have babies. And it's like many sharks also, they have that long period of time before they reach that adulthood. That if these are being collected for their gills and so forth prior to that, then they never have a chance to have any offspring. And even when they do, they only have 1 to 3 pups every 3 years. So they're not a very prolific breeder either, animal. For the reef pups, they come out with a wingspan of 2 to 3 feet already. For the pelagic, the larger ones, they come out with already a 6-foot wingspan. They come out as a rolled up burrito. Not my words, that's the scientist's description of this. This picture was taken 50 years ago. We do not have any other photo of a live birth in the water.
You're kidding.
This is the only time, and that's Robert Fabry happened to be at the right place at the right time to take that picture. That to me is amazing, and we still, again, we don't know enough about these animals. There's not enough people out there trying to learn to be able to witness something like this. Now, when this happens and all that, that's still things that we're trying to learn as well. And we do have them off of our gardens. It's considered a manta ray nursery. So we're fortunate that it's just right off of our beaches. That's where they're breeding as well. And again, about 100 miles off of Galveston, they're constantly being seen out there. This was a video off of Corpus Christi, fisherman out on his kayak, and he happened to have a GoPro in the front of his kayak. And he shares a couple of expletives, and then he basically says he thought it was
Sweet. Wow, look at that.
Wow.
he thought it was a dolphin at first.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
We don't know why they jump out of water like that. Whether-
Because they're upside down.
But
right?
either upside down or upside down, I think it's easier probably for them. But we still don't know why they leap out.
Huh.
Whether it's to get rid of parasites or they're just having fun. We don't know.
They make a lot of noise when they do it, because usually when they hit the water, it pow!
You know, that, we've all done a belly flop at some point. That's what they're doing. And that's why they think maybe that gets those parasites that may be on them off. But it's still really cool to see. And I think that's what I saw. But I barely caught it, peripheral vision, right off the edge. And by that time, he only did it one time. It's that fish that got away, right? But when I saw it this big. Now, this is off the Flower Gardens, again, 100 miles off of our coast. They've identified this as a male, a young one, and you'll be able to tell a shark did try to get him.
Got some suckers on.
Yeah.
Remoras.
Yep, he's got a couple of hitchhikers.
Perfect fit.
But you can see where that bite just grabbed him. And notice he has those front fins rolled up like the newspaper, so he's not feeding. Now, the best way that I've learned to be able to tell whether it's a male or a female is they actually have a claspers, the males do, at the base of their tail, which is part of their sexual organ, versus the female that we saw, which is almost like a very thin tail. So that thickness, it didn't spread out to be able to show those clasps, but it's located right at the base of their long tail. And that's one way that you can distinguish. The size is another, but if it's a young one, well, that doesn't help you because it's too young. And this is another shot, again, off of our coast. He's got those front fins rolled up.
That remora has a remora.
Yeah. And so again, my first question was, are they here? And they definitely are. Now, we cannot authenticate this picture, but it is supposedly a 5,000-pound manta that was captured up the northeast coast, so not around here. And what they said, what the captain reported is that baby manta ray came out of an obvious female when they brought her in.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the biggest one that we have any kind of evidence of. But again, there's nobody around from 1933 to verify that was what it was. And like I said, there is an effort to try to help document. This would be an extreme citizen science project for master naturalists, but they do have this set up that if you happen to go anywhere, if you're on vacation, you take a picture, submit it, and it goes into that larger database to track and get more information about these animals. Again, part of what they're trying to do is looking for new ones to help identify or judge the population. Because we know they're being hit really hard, and even though they're trying to control some islands and some reefs where they see them, some countries don't care. And so there is an issue about how large of a population that do we have and what kind of fishing can they actually sustain. This is somebody that I started to follow. She does the Manta Ray Advocates out of Hawaii. She first discovered that whole reef where the manta rays were coming off of the Big Island in '89. And since then, she's been having tours, education, outreach, to try to educate all of us on what are the manta rays and why should we care. And there's actually a big proposal now. Last year, there was a manta ray that got hit by a boat. With all of us humans out there trying to look at them, there was a boat who left the propeller on, and the manta ray got hit. There was an incident where a worker of one of those boats somehow fell into the water. She was hit by the propeller, and she passed away. So there's been a couple of incidents like that within the past year that have really brought attention to. It's not really regulated. It's on that, faith that we all do the right thing, but something needs to happen because we're not doing the right thing. And so there was a big hearing that happened this past week to the powers that be to say, you know what, we need to regulate this. Don't regulate the site. Don't keep us away, because we still want to see that. Again, we see it, we experience it, we care. If you tell people you can't go there anymore, that does more damage than good. And so she's an advocate for, let's set up the rules that protect the manta rays and the humans. Because what we find is people will go in there with their boats, they have the lights fixed underneath their boat, the manta rays are coming up and they don't know well enough that they hit the lights that are protruding from under the boat. Or they're coming up and they're rubbing right up against the propeller. Even if it's stopped, it's still a danger for these guys. They don't have any armor or protection on their bodies. Again, there's outfits out there that are doing their tour, and instead of mooring themselves to an anchor or mooring themselves to something, they use their motor and keep the motor running to control where their boat is. Well, that doesn't help the manta ray. And so they're swimming up and getting awfully close until one did get hit. So they're advocating for better rules on once you approach. The outfit we were in, they knew very early on to stop and get somebody in the water to tie us down versus motoring in. And that's, to me, that's a smart thing. We saw little boats with 6 divers, motor comes in right in the middle of where everybody's looking, divers jump, and then they take off. Well, I mean, that's still too dangerous for everybody. And then there needs to be some sort of control over the number of people that are there. It's a great experience, but we can't have so many boats there because we're just asking for trouble. And so she's advocating for these rules. I sent our letter on behalf of our family to say, yes, I believe this is something that we need to do. Thankfully, I don't think we have this issue when we have 100 miles to get to where our breeding grounds are on our coast. But when we do see them coming up the shipping channel, we see those jet skis moving around. I didn't know he was there, but we weren't moving. And so we're fortunate that we didn't have any incident. But hopefully we won't have that kind of problem on our coast. And this last thing I want to share with you is this is a video. The group puts out these meditation tapes. And what they show are manta rays swimming in the water. And it actually does work. Because now I can enjoy without freezing myself or any body part and actually see these guys just swimming around. And it is a very unique experience. Because if you've gone snorkeling or scuba diving, you're under the water, you don't hear a whole lot, and just to see these guys flying, essentially flying underwater is really, really cool. And again, they're not, especially there where they see humans a lot, they're not afraid of us. And I think they don't think we're going to hurt them. And again, we don't touch them, but they have no problem coming up and feeling you with their wing as they're coming by, which is really neat.
Are they intentionally doing that, or they just happen to do it?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think they mind, but like I said, they seem to have a sense of curiosity. And, like the book that we just finished reading, we don't know what kind of senses they have on their wingtips that brush might give them a certain sensation.
Yeah.
One thing that they did find for some of these guys, especially if you're a scuba diver underwater, they like swimming through your bubbles. They'll purposely come back and swim through your bubbles again.
Huh.
And again, is that a tingling sensation? Do they think it's fun? We don't know, but they do some of these things, I think, on purpose.
Huh.
It's kind of like the stories that you'll hear about whales that come up to your boat and look at you to see what you're doing. Same thing with our dolphins. They'll come up and see. And so we just don't know enough about them in reality. Now, this is 10 minutes long. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but any questions?
So, if there aren't that many observations of manta rays in the ocean, actually, how do they know how wide the wingspans are,
And
or
so,
how much they weigh?
and so those are some of the recent studies that they have done. And so we do have people off the coast of South America, people that are out in New Zealand, Australia, where they do see the large ocean ones. And they've been doing it now for at least 10 to 15 years that they've been able to identify. And for some of these, they don't try to catch them, but from at least underwater, try to look at the size to try to estimate. Now, unfortunately, they do go to some of these countries where they are being slaughtered. If anything, to be able to get some scientific data from these manta rays that were killed. And some of that is the weight. And again, there's beaches of them lined up, and after they're cut apart, they move on. And so at least our scientists are saying, you know what, let's try to make something good out of bad, and they'll go in and get some data from that. And again, some of these is just through observation as to how big they can get. And are those the biggest ones? We don't know, but those are the biggest ones that we've seen. Yes.
It seems to me, I live in New Jersey. It seems to me almost every year our local news affiliates will have footage of the mantas going up, big ones. And now when I say it seems to me they say something about them migrating.
Right.
So that they're going north to have babies.
I would almost associate what they do with like what we hear about whales. But one, they're migrating to follow the plankton, but also the change in season to have their calves and so forth.
Yeah.
I think it's the same idea that they do.
Yeah.
Our whale sharks do the same.
Whale sharks will do the same, and so they'll go up and down our coast. It'd be kind of cool if the big ones would decide to come into the Gulf and give us a video and then keep going. But we don't know how far, and a lot of the things, we know more about whales now than we do about manta rays. But yeah, I'm not surprised. That very large one that they caught, that old picture, was up in your area.
Yeah.
They caught it.
It's just beautiful. They're like giant birds almost.
I mean, we saw a small one and we're amazed. And imagine swimming with these huge ones. Yeah.
I was kayaking last year in a whitewater kayak, which is only 6 feet long, and I'm near the weather station in the cut, and when I see dolphins, I saw these fins coming up, and I thought they were dolphins, and but then I said, no way, and these are coming up 14 inches. As I got closer, there were 3 manta rays, because that's why I'd see the 2, and they'd leave them up. And so I was able, and I must have been curious, it kind of came, and then I just got behind it. It was about 18 inches underwater, but all of them were bringing their fins up above the water. And the 3 just kind of moved out to sea, so I got to just be right behind them. They were kind of a dark gray, white underneath. But how often does that occur?
And I think that's something that, I mean, up until that experience and then me being out of the water to see it one time, I wouldn't have thought that they would be there. And so there may not be enough of us looking out for them because we didn't think about it. story, chances are really good that they probably come up if they're looking for plankton, if they're looking for something, why not come up the shipping channels? We get sharks that do that, we get all the things that do that. But that would, again, one of the great things, like kayaker that was fishing, he just happened to have a GoPro. And
Yeah.
that's what caught that image. See, you need one now.
I knew, I know.
Yeah, I say that.
But it's just one of those unique things, he was at the right place at the right time with the right equipment to be able to capture that shot. Or else it would have been, yeah, I have fish this big.
Yeah.
We were in Barbados, back in the nineties, Steph and I were, and, we ate at a restaurant, it was perched on a cliff over like a rocky cove, like, and they had they had lit up underneath on the bottom of the cliffs, and they had all these manta rays just swimming. It was so cool to see them, you know, while you're eating dinner, they're just right there, swimming in front of you. You know, they're mesmerizing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Robert.
We talked about that restaurant, and so this little cove, this looks nice because it's not very congested, very simple, only a few boats. This is a restaurant that would light up so that as you were eating, you would experience the night creatures. And this is when they were like, wait a minute, what is that? And then, so that was 88, 89 that they started to go out there to see what are they and start to learn about them. And who knows how long they've been doing that until we finally recognized them. But that was one of their claims to fame is you get to see the animals out there while you're having dinner. It was too expensive for us to go. We settled on the cold one.